When you hear the name Hercules, what immediately springs to mind? Chances are you picture immense strength, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
A mighty club, perhaps a lion's skin draped over bulging muscles, and certainly a string of legendary feats accomplished through sheer brawn. He's often seen as the ultimate strongman, the very embodiment of raw, unstoppable power.
That's the common image, yeah.
But what if that familiar image, while compelling, only tells part of the story? What if one of history's most celebrated figures, renowned for his physical might, was also surprisingly a master of cunning, a nuanced individual whose complexity goes far beyond mere physical strength?
That's precisely it. The popular image of Hercules, while not entirely inaccurate, truly only scratches the surface of a deeply multifaceted, legendary figure. He's a hero defined by his contradictions, a blend of divine power and profound human frailty, brute force, and often overlooked yet surprisingly sharp intellect.
And today, on The Deep Dive, that's our mission. We're going to embark on an in-depth exploration of this fascinating, multifaceted figure. We'll delve into his dramatic origins, trace his incredible evolution from the Greek hero Heracles to the iconic Roman deity Hercules, and discover how succeeding ages, right up to our own, interpreted and reshaped his enduring legacy.
Exactly.
Our aim is to move well beyond the muscles and the club, uncovering the surprising shrewdness, the deeply complex personal life, and the undeniable cultural impact of Hercules, revealing precisely why his story continues to resonate with us across millennia.
To do this, we've gathered some truly illuminating sources. We've pulled together encyclopedic accounts that meticulously trace his mythological journey and cultural significance across various civilizations.
Okay.
And we'll couple that with a detailed, focused look at one of his most pivotal and often profoundly misunderstood labors, the quest for the golden apples of the Hesperides. This is where Hercules truly shines in an entirely unexpected way, showcasing a side of his heroism that often goes unnoticed.
The golden apples.
Yeah.
That's one with Atlas, right?
Yeah, that's the one. Brains over brawn definitely plays a huge part there.
Fantastic. So settle in, because you're about to have your understanding of Hercules expanded in ways you might not have imagined. Get ready to discover why he's so much more than just a muscle-bound hero.
Yeah.
Our journey into Hercules' legend begins at the very source. His dramatic origin and how he transcended his Greek roots to become the iconic Roman Hercules. He's known to us as Hercules in Roman mythology, but his foundational roots are firmly in Greece, where he was revered as the divine hero Heracles.
Heracles.
This wasn't merely a simple name change. It represented a profound cultural embrace and transformation.
It did indeed. His unique parentage immediately sets the stage for the profound contradictions that would come to define his tumultuous life. He was the son of Jupiter, the mighty king of the gods, or Zeus in the Greek version.
Right, Zeus?
And a mortal woman named Alpina. This divine mortal lineage, a common trope in ancient myths, invariably placed figures in a precarious position, sort of caught between two worlds.
Always trouble, that mix.
Always trouble. For Hercules, it meant he was born with truly incredible, almost overwhelming power, but also plagued by immense personal problems and divine animosity from the very moment of his birth.
And those problems, ironically, stem from the queen of the gods herself, Jupiter's perpetually jealous wife, Juno, or Hera in Greek.
Hera, yeah. Her animosity towards Hercules was relentless, starting even before he drew his first breath. She dispatched two witches, traditionally identified as the goddesses of childbirth, Lucina and Alethea, to prevent his birth altogether.
Wow, really? How?
Well, the idea was to bind Alcmena in labor, magically, stopping him from ever entering the world and, challenging her husband's infidelity.
That's intense. Did it work?
Which they very nearly succeeded in doing had it not been for the quick thinking of one of Alcmena's servants, a resourceful woman named Galanthus. She tricked the goddesses, making them believe the child had already been born,
Clever.
causing them to abandon their post in frustration and allowing Hercules to finally enter the world. But Juno wasn't finished, not by a long shot. In one of the most iconic and terrifying images of his precocious infancy, she sent two venomous serpents to kill him in his cradle as he slept.
Ah, yes, the snakes. I remember this.
The truly astonishing part is that baby Hercules, not even a day old, displayed his innate, unparalleled strength by strangling both reptiles with his bare hands.
Incredible. Just woke up and dealt with them.
That singular act, so early in his life, immediately established his extraordinary, almost terrifying, innate power.
And there's an even more intriguing, almost ironic twist in his origin story that highlights Juno's unwitting contribution to his legend. Tell us about the Milky Way.
Ah, yes. There's a version of the myth where Alcmene, fearing Juno's wrath, abandoned the infant Hercules in a field. But the goddess Minerva Athena, in Greek, ever the wise strategist, found him.
Okay.
And believing him to be an orphan mortal child, brought him to Juno herself, claiming the child needed nourishment.
Well, this is going to end well. Or maybe it is.
Well, it's complicated. In a moment of unwitting cosmic irony, Juno actually suckled Hercules at her own divine breast.
No way. So she actually helped him.
This brief, accidental act, however, imbued him with even further strength and power, drawing directly from the queen of the god's own essence. But it was fleeting.
What happened?
The infant Hercules, perhaps with a touch of his later wildness and strength, bit her nipple, causing her to recoil and push him away in disgust, spilling her divine milk across the night sky.
And that's the Milky Way.
And that, according to myth, is how the Milky Way, the galaxy we inhabit, was formed. It's such a fascinating narrative detail, showing that even his greatest enemy, in her moment of unwitting compassion and subsequent fury, accidentally contributed to his legendary, even cosmic might.
Wow, that's quite a backstory.
It's a reminder that even the gods' best-laid plans can go awry.
That's a powerful narrative, truly. The Romans, clearly impressed by this raw power and epic backstory, embraced Heracles wholeheartedly, giving him the Latin name Hercules. This name was actually borrowed through earlier Etruscan forms, like Heracles and Hercule, showcasing a cultural exchange. He very quickly became a favorite subject in Etruscan art, demonstrating how readily they recognized a hero who fit their own burgeoning ethos of strength and virtue.
And his influence permeated their everyday life, too, far beyond just grand narratives. The mild oath, Hercule, or me Hercule, was a common interjection in classical Latin.
Like saying, oh my God, or something.
Pretty much, yeah. It was uttered frequently in daily conversation, much like saying, by Jove, or my goodness, today. This shows he wasn't just a distant, abstract god, but a familiar figure woven into the common parlance of Roman citizens.
That's fascinating. So he was really part of the fabric of life.
Absolutely. Beyond that, the Romans developed their own distinct myths and cults specifically for him, cementing his unique Roman identity.
We see that in tales like his triumph over the monstrous fire-breathing giant Caucasus, for instance, who was terrorizing the Roman countryside around the future site of Rome.
Right, the Caucasus story is very Roman.
That's a classic strongman tale, a demonstration of civilizing power that directly impacts Roman lore and geography. And he was deeply connected to the Aventine Hill in Rome through his son, Aventinus, further grounding him geographically within Rome's own sacred landscape.
What's particularly striking is his pervasive appeal across all levels of Roman society, from the common oath of a citizen to the highest echelons of power. We find prominent Romans like Mark Antony, the formidable general and triumvir, and even the controversial emperor Commodus, who famously believed himself to be the reincarnation of Hercules.
Oh, right, Commodus. Gladiator vibes.
Exactly. They considered Hercules a personal patron god, for figures who embodied strength, imperial ambition, and at times a more forceful style of leadership. Hercules was a natural, almost inescapable choice for divine patronage. Commodus even went so far as to appear in the arena, dressed in lion skin, wielding a club, trying to physically embody the hero.
Wow. Talk about taking method acting seriously.
He's certainly committed to the bit.
And his religious veneration in Rome was surprisingly varied. Not just confined to battle or exhibitions of strength, he was revered as a deity concerned with children and childbirth. That seems counterintuitive.
You might not immediately associate the massive, brawny Hercules with such delicate matters, but it links back to those myths of his precocious infancy, strangling snakes,
Right.
And of course, his well-known reputation for fathering countless children across the Mediterranean. This suggests a Roman understanding of masculinity that encompassed not just raw power, but also the ability to generate and protect life, a side of Hercules often overlooked in our modern interpretations.
That adds a whole new layer. Protector, life giver.
Indeed, it highlights his role as a protector and a force of life beyond just the battlefield. In fact, a deeply symbolic ritual saw Roman brides wearing a special belt tied with the knot of Hercules.
The knot of Hercules. What was that about?
This intricate knot was believed to be extremely hard to untie, symbolizing the unbreakable bond of marriage and the enduring commitment required. The groom would then untie it as part of the wedding ceremony.
Ah.
A physical act mirroring the loosening of the bride's virginity and the commencement of the marital bond. It drew on Hercules' strength not just in physical prowess, but in enduring commitment and the sacredness of alliance.
That's quite beautiful, actually. So his presence in Roman literature also brilliantly showcases his complexity and adaptability.
Absolutely. The comic playwright Plautus, for example, transformed his divine conception story into a rollicking sex comedy in his play Amphitryon.
A sex comedy about Hercules' conception.
Yes, playfully exploring the divine trickery and mistaken identities involved in Jupiter's seduction of Alcmena. It poked fun at the gods while still acknowledging their power.
That sounds fun.
But then, at the opposite end of the dramatic spectrum, you have Seneca's powerful tragedy, Hercules Furens.
Furens meaning
Mad. Furious, yeah. It focuses on his terrible, divinely induced bout with madness, revealing the darker, more tormented aspects of his persona and the profound psychological cost of his heroic burden. He actually kills his own family in this fit of madness.
Oh, wow. That's dark.
Very dark. This broad range of portrayals truly rounds out his character, moving him beyond the simple strongman to a figure grappling with internal demons, divine interference, and the very nature of heroism itself. His story became a canvas for exploring profound human and divine themes.
So he wasn't just a hero, he was a deeply flawed, complex character even then.
Exactly. And his worship wasn't confined to Italy. During the entire Roman imperial era, Hercules was worshipped locally, from the Iberian Peninsula through Gaul and across much of the empire. Archaeological evidence, from dedicated altars to votive inscriptions and small domestic shrines, demonstrates his widespread influence and adaptability to various local cults and customs across the vast Roman domain.
So Hercules wasn't just a Roman phenomenon. His influence stretched far and wide, even into places you might not expect. Let's talk about his surprising and fascinating Germanic connections. It's quite wild to think of Hercules resonating with powerful Germanic tribes, isn't it?
Absolutely. It seems unexpected at first glance. Tacitus, the eminent Roman historian, in his ethnographic work Germania, records a special, almost revered affinity of the Germanic peoples for Hercules.
Tacitus, writing around the 1st century CE.
That's right. He specifically notes that when Germanic warriors went to battle, they sang of Hercules, first among all heroes, using a powerful vocal performance called a barditis.
A barditis, what's that?
This wasn't just a song, it was a deep, guttural chant, a war cry designed to rouse courage among their own ranks and, remarkably, to even predict the outcome of the approaching conflict based on the sound's resonance, a primitive form of augury through sheer vocal might.
That's incredible. Singing about Hercules to get hyped for battle, almost as a ritual. It makes you wonder, was it really the Greek and Roman Hercules they were invoking, or a local deity with similar attributes?
That's where the fascinating scholarly interpretation comes in. Many historians and classicists believe Tacitus was employing what's known as interpretatio Romana.
Ah, the Roman interpretation thing.
Exactly. This was a common Roman practice of equating or interpreting foreign deities and cultural concepts through the lens of their own pantheon. In this case, it's widely believed he was equating the Germanic god Hunraz, whom we know better today as Thor, the Norse god of thunder, with Hercules.
Thor. Okay, that makes sense. Strength, protection, big weapon.
Right. This offers a valuable glimpse into cross-cultural mythological syncretism, where Romans recognized parallels between their own powerful deities and those of the peoples they encountered, particularly those embodying strength and protection. It powerfully points to shared archetypes of strength, heroism, and thunderous power across vastly different cultures.
And this cultural and religious connection manifested physically, too, through what are known as Hercules Club amulets.
Yes, these distinctive amulets began appearing from the 2nd to 3rd century CE across the Roman Empire, often crafted from precious materials like gold, silver, or bronze, and shaped unmistakably like the familiar gnarled wooden clubs associated with Hercules.
Little miniature clubs.
Exactly. Some even bore explicit inscriptions like Deo Herculi, directly confirming their association and purpose as protective charms or devotional items linked to Hercules. They were widely popular among soldiers and ordinary citizens alike, seeking the hero's protection and strength.
But then, during the turbulent migration period from the 5th to 7th centuries, these amulets underwent a fascinating cultural transformation.
They did. They rapidly spread from the Elbo-Germanic area through northern and central Europe and evolved into distinct Germanic Donars clubs, Donar being another name for Thor Honraz.
Donors clubs.
Yeah.
So they adapted the symbol.
Right. Instead of just gold, they were made from more locally available materials like deer antler, bone, or wood, and sometimes still from precious metals, reflecting local craftsmanship and reverence for their own thunder god.
This transformation provides a clear and compelling cultural lineage. you can trace the symbolic journey of this powerful protective charm.
Absolutely. And eventually, as Christianity began to spread and take root through Scandinavia from the 8th to 9th century, these pagan donors clubs were gradually replaced by the now iconic Viking Age Thor's hammer pendants, such as Mjolnir.
Ah, so it goes Hercules Club, Donar's Club, Thor's Hammer.
It's a direct, almost unbroken line from Hercules' club through Donar's to Thor's hammer, demonstrating how ancient symbols of strength, protection, and divine power adapt and endure through new mythologies and belief systems, maintaining their core significance even as their names and forms change.
It's truly a testament to the enduring power of these archetypal figures. But what happened to Hercules once the Roman Empire itself became Christianized? Did he just disappear into the annals of forgotten paganism?
Not at all. Far from it. With the Christianization of the Roman Empire, mythological narratives, including those of powerful figures like Hercules, were often reinterpreted allegorically.
Finding Christian meaning in pagan stories.
Exactly. This approach was heavily influenced by the philosophical currents of late antiquity, particularly Neoplatonism. It became a sophisticated way to make sense of the old stories within the new, ascendant moral and religious framework of Christianity, extracting ethical lessons from pagan tales.
So rather than seeing Hercules' descent into the underworld as just a literal physical journey to retrieve Cerberus, for instance.
Right. The 4th century Roman grammarian and commentator Servius, known for his influential commentary on Virgil's Aeneid, described it as representing his ability to overcome earthly desires and vices, or even to conquer the earth itself as a consumer of bodies. It transcended a physical feat to become a profound spiritual triumph over temptation and mortality.
So Hercules becomes a symbol of overcoming sin.
In a way, yes. And in some early patristic texts, those writings of the early church fathers, there's even clear evidence of Hercules being identified with the biblical figure Samson.
Samson?
Yeah.
Another strong man. That fits?
Another figure of immense, divinely granted strength, renowned for his feats against his enemies. This illustrates a clear intellectual effort to connect these powerful pagan heroes with Christian narratives, finding shared virtues or symbolic meanings that could bridge the old and new religious paradigms. Both were strong, both fought monsters or enemies, and both were divinely touched.
In medieval mythography, Hercules certainly didn't fade away. He was consistently presented as a strong role model, showcasing both valor and, importantly, wisdom.
Yes, wisdom becomes increasingly important. His legendary battles against monstrous foes weren't merely physical struggles. They were seen as allegories for internal battles against moral obstacles, vices, and temptations. The Hydra, for instance, could represent the proliferation of sin, and Hercules' defeat of it symbolized overcoming evil.
Okay, so the monsters become metaphors for moral failings.
Precisely. A glossiter, an annotator of medieval texts, even noted that Hercules becoming a constellation, the constellation Hercules, of course, symbolized that immense strength was necessary to gain entrance to heaven, adding a truly spiritual and aspirational dimension to his physical prowess.
Strength gets you into heaven. Interesting take.
It's important to remember that medieval texts were primarily written and circulated in Latin, which meant their understanding of Hercules was largely shaped by Roman interpretations, with very little direct access to the original Greek sources until much later. This significantly influenced how he was portrayed for centuries.
And then came the transformative period of the Renaissance, which fundamentally reshaped the understanding of classical antiquity.
Absolutely. The invention of the printing press really supercharged a renewed scholarly and artistic interest in Greek literature, making ancient texts widely accessible for the first time in centuries.
So they could finally read the original Heracles stories.
Yes, this meant a profound rediscovery of Heracles in his original Greek context, though often still referred to by his Romanized name. Renaissance mythography, which was this burgeoning field of systematically collecting and interpreting myths, drew far more extensively on the Greek tradition of Heracles, although he was still most commonly referred to by his Romanized name, Hercules, or sometimes by his patronymic Alcides.
Alcides, right. Another name for him.
This period saw a massive effort to collect, categorize, and interpret classical myths, often with a newfound emphasis on their moral and philosophical lessons for contemporary society.
And a prime example of that is Natale Conti's incredibly influential Mythology, published in Venice in 1567.
A hugely important work. This monumental book summarized an extensive range of myths from classical antiquity, effectively solidifying Hercules' narrative and interpretations for generations to come, becoming a standard reference for scholars and artists.
What's absolutely crucial, and this ties directly into our overarching theme of brains over brawn, is that Conti explicitly continued and even amplified the moralizing impulse inherited from the Middle Ages.
Yes, he did. He stated, and I think this quote is truly central to understanding the Renaissance reinterpretation of Hercules. Hercules, who subdued and destroyed monsters, bandits, and criminals, was justly famous and renowned for his great courage.
Right, standard stuff.
But it was his wisdom and great soul that earned those honors. Noble blood, physical strength, and political power just aren't good enough.
Wisdom and great souls, not just noble blood or physical strength. That's a powerful and sophisticated statement about what true heroism means.
Isn't it? It fundamentally reframes Hercules from a simple, brute strongman to a figure of profound moral and intellectual character, aligning him with the Renaissance ideals of humanism and virtue. It emphasizes that physical might alone is insufficient. True greatness requires intellectual and moral fortitude.
So the Renaissance really pushed the thinking hero aspect.
They absolutely did. And this elevated, more complex image of Hercules, embodying both strength and wisdom, was ripe for political appropriation by ambitious rulers. We see this brilliantly illustrated in 1600, when the grateful citizens of Avignon bestowed the lavish title Hercule Gallois, or Gallic Hercules, on Henry IV of France.
The Gallic Hercules. Why?
They justified this extravagant flattery with a completely fictional genealogy that linked the House of Navarre, Henry's dynasty, to a supposed nephew of Hercules' son, Hesperides.
Wow, inventing family ties to Hercules.
It clearly shows how Hercules was used as a powerful and highly adaptable symbol of legitimacy, strength, and divine favor for rulers seeking to solidify their power and image in the early modern period.
It's clear that Hercules' story was constantly being adapted and reinterpreted to suit the needs and beliefs of different eras and political landscapes. Now let's look at his more tangible presence, how his worship was embedded in the physical landscape, his role in real-world triumphs, and his pervasive influence in art across the centuries.
What's truly fascinating here is how Hercules wasn't just a mythical figure confined to ancient scrolls, but one who was deeply embedded in the very physical landscape and everyday practices of the ancient world. Take the concept of the Road of Hercules, for instance, a legendary route across southern Gaul.
A specific road named after him.
Well, more a route associated with him. This wasn't just a geographical path. It was explicitly associated with his 10th labor, the epic journey to retrieve the cattle of Geryon from the mythical Red Isles, a journey that supposedly took him through this very region.
Okay, so a mythical journey leaves a mark on the real landscape.
Precisely. And here's a real-world connection that truly brings this to life. Hannibal.
Hannibal, the Carthaginian general with the elephants.
That's the one. When Hannibal famously marched his army, complete with elephants, towards Italy during the Second Punic War, he deliberately took the same ancient path and actively encouraged the belief among his troops and the local populace that he was the second Hercules.
He wanted to be Hercules.
He was consciously drawing a parallel, positioning himself as a new, equally formidable hero destined for legendary triumphs. Primary sources of the time, such as Livy, often make explicit comparisons between Hercules and Hannibal, underscoring this deliberate narrative.
That's amazing PR for Hannibal.
Absolutely. Hannibal further tried to invoke these parallels by beginning his daring march on Italy by visiting a shrine of Hercules at Gades, a powerful act of devotion and symbolic alignment. Livy even noted an instance during Hannibal's perilous Alps crossing where, faced with a massive cliff blocking his path, Hannibal ordered his men to fracture the side of it using fire and vinegar.
Fire and vinegar. To break rock.
Apparently. Performing what was seen as a heroic Herculean labor to clear the way for his army. It wasn't just following a route, it was literally performing a heroic imitation, adding a layer of mythic grandeur to his military campaign.
That's incredible. Not just a strategy, but a performance of heroism. But now, let's challenge some Roman social norms. What about women and Hercules worship? Roman society was notoriously strict about gender roles in cults and religious practices, wasn't it?
Generally, yes. Roman women were typically limited to cults that specifically addressed feminine matters, such as fertility or childbirth, or those that required virginal chastity, like the Vestal Virgins.
Right.
So Hercules, a figure of overt masculine strength, virility, and heroic violence, seems like an odd fit, or even one that would be entirely off limits. There's actually an ongoing scholarly debate about whether women were completely prohibited from all of Hercules' cults, or if the prohibition was specifically limited to the Era Maxima, his most ancient and important altar in Rome, which was associated with particularly masculine rites.
The Era Maxima. the great altar. So what do the surviving ancient sources tell us specifically about this rather peculiar restriction?
We have several key accounts. Macrobius, a 4th century writer, paraphrases from Varro, a much earlier Roman scholar, giving us a foundational story. He recounts that when Hercules was bringing the cattle of Geryon through Italy, a thirsty Hercules was refused water by a woman.
She refused Hercules water. Bold move.
Well, she explained it was the day of the goddess women, and it was unlawful for a man to taste what had been prepared for her. This insult, combined with a religious observance, supposedly led Hercules to declare that women would forever be forbidden from his sacrifice at the Era Maxima, and he ordered his priests never to allow any women to take part in those specific rites.
That sounds pretty definitive. Women banned from the main altar because one woman wouldn't give him a drink.
It does sound definitive, but Macrobius also states that the exact extent of this restriction remains ambiguous because the term sacrum, which is used to describe what women weren't allowed to participate in, is a very general term.
Sacrum, meaning sacred stuff.
Right. It could refer to anything belonging to the gods, from precious items to specific rituals to entire temples. So it doesn't clarify the full scope of the prohibition. Was it just the meat of the sacrifice, the entire ceremony, or all Hercules cults?
Okay. So maybe not a total ban everywhere.
Possibly. We also have Aulus Gellius, a 2nd century CE author, who mentioned in his Attic Nights that Roman women did not swear on Hercules, just as Roman men did not swear on Castor, and that women refrained from sacrificing to Hercules. And Propertius's poem 4.9, likely also drawing from Varro, confirms similar information about the prohibition at the Era Maxima. So it points to a nuanced rather than absolute prohibition in specific contexts, adding a fascinating layer to gender roles in ancient Roman religion.
It's truly fascinating how specific, yet often ambiguous, these ancient accounts can be, leaving room for modern interpretation and debate. Let's shift now to Hercules' presence in both mythic and real-world triumph. How is his worship woven into the fabric of Roman epics and public life?
Virgil's Aeneid, the great Latin epic poem that narrates the founding of Rome, gives us a wonderfully vivid example in its 8th book. Aeneas, the Trojan hero and ancestor of the Romans, finally reaches the future site of Rome, which at that time was a humble Arcadian settlement led by King Evander.
Evander, okay.
And what does he find? Evander and his Arcadians making sacrifices to Hercules on the banks of the Tiber River. They are celebrating his prior defeat of the monstrous Caucasus who had terrorized their community. Aeneas joins their feast, a moment of shared reverence, and Evander recounts Caucasus' story, celebrating Hercules as a triumphant hero who brought peace and order.
So Hercules is literally present at the founding moments of Rome in their epic.
Absolutely. And Evander's praise is truly powerful, underscoring Hercules' significance to Rome's very foundation. He says, and I'm paraphrasing Virgil's majestic Latin here, "Time brought to us in our time of need the aid and arrival of a god, for there came that mightiest avenger, the victor Hercules."
Proud with the slaughter and the spoils of threefold Geryon.
And he drove the mighty bulls here, and the cattle filled both valley and riverside. It directly connects Hercules' mythical deeds, his labor with Geryon and his defeat of Caucasus, to the very nascent founding narrative of Rome itself, portraying him as a primordial liberator.
Wow. And Hercules' presence in myth extends even to his own mortality, or rather, his achievement of immortality.
Right. Gaius Julius Hyginus, in his Fables, a collection of mythological narratives, tells the story of Philoctetes building a funeral pyre for Hercules. Upon this pyre, Hercules' mortal body was consumed by fire, and then, through divine intervention, he was raised to Olympus, achieving apotheosis, becoming a god himself.
So he literally ascends to godhood, the ultimate triumph.
Exactly. The ultimate triumph, not just over monsters, but over death, solidifying his divine status. And in the real world, Romans were literally building statues to Hercules to commemorate military victories as early as 305 BCE, according to the historian Livy.
Real statues for real victories.
These weren't just decorative. They were tangible expressions of gratitude and invocation. Pliny the Elder even credits the legendary Evander, the same figure from the Aeneid, with erecting the very first statue of Hercules in the Forum Ovarium, a significant cattle market in Rome. So he wasn't just a mythical hero, he was a very real, tangible symbol of success, both military and civic.
Makes sense.
Indeed. By the Augustan age, the peak of Roman power, scholars estimate there would have been anywhere from 5 to 7 temples dedicated to Hercules in Rome alone.
5 to 7 temples just in Rome.
That's the estimate. This included the Temple of Hercules Musarum, connecting him to the Muses and intellectual pursuits.
Hercules and the Muses, another unexpected link.
And the Temple of Hercules Custos, the guardian Hercules, linking him directly to military success, public safety, and general veneration. These were public spaces, focal points of ritual and civic identity, truly making him a patron of Roman triumphs and a cornerstone of their religious landscape.
And visually, how do we identify him in art across the centuries? What are his unmistakable calling cards?
In Roman Renaissance and post-Renaissance art, Hercules is almost universally identified by his iconic attributes. His primary characteristic is often the lion skin, usually depicted as the hide of the Nemean lion, one of his first and most famous labors draped over his powerful physique or worn as a hood.
The lion skin, got it.
His other unmistakable attribute is his gnarled club, often depicted as a massive rough-hewn tree branch, his preferred weapon.
Lion skin and club. The classic look.
The classic look. Interestingly, in ancient Roman mosaics, he's frequently shown with tanned bronze skin, a striking detail indicating his virile, active, outdoor nature, contrasting with the paler skin typically depicted for women or figures of leisure.
It's a subtle but strong visual cue, speaking volumes about his active, dynamic heroism, and that iconic image, particularly epitomized by the Farnese Hercules statue.
Ah, the Farnese Hercules, incredible sculpture.
A massive marble sculpture from the early 3rd century CE continued to inspire artists even into the 20th and 21st centuries. Figures like Jeff Koons, Matthew Derbyshire, and Robert Mapplethorpe have all created powerful reinterpretations. But this modern engagement with Hercules also sparked a really interesting and important colorism debate.
It certainly did. Jeff Koons, for instance, known for his glossy, often provocative works, and Matthew Derbyshire, in their reinterpretations of classical statuary, used deliberately pristine white materials, whether porcelain or plaster.
Okay.
Some critics and art historians have interpreted this choice as inadvertently perpetuating a classical aesthetic that perhaps unconsciously reinforces the idea of whiteness as the default or ideal for classical figures. This falls into the broader critique of colorism, which examines how skin tone influences social perception and representation, often privileging lighter skin.
Right, the sort of classical ideal equals white marble idea.
Exactly. And then Robert Mapplethorpe, with his powerful photographic work featuring black model Derek Cross, directly reacted to this pervasive aesthetic.
Mapplethorpe's work is always striking. How did he engage with Hercules?
Exactly. Mapplethorpe's work, particularly his iconic photograph Derek Cross, where the black male body is presented in poses echoing classical statuary, can be seen as a direct counter-narrative to neoclassical colorism. By portraying a powerful, muscular black figure as a direct analog to the classical ideal of Hercules, Mapplethorpe actively resisted the pervasive portrayal of Hercules as exclusively white.
That's a powerful statement.
It's a powerful, contemporary, critical lens applied to ancient art and its modern legacy, challenging assumptions about who embodies heroic ideals. Beyond high art and scholarly debate, Hercules is pervasive throughout our modern culture.
He's even literally walked through history in your pocket. He's appeared on the earliest Roman coinage, signifying strength and legitimacy.
Right, symbolizing the power of the state.
And even on modern currency, like the Austrian 20-euro Baroque silver coin, linking his ancient symbolism to contemporary value.
And his name has become synonymous with military might. A remarkable number of naval vessels across the globe have borne his name. 6 British Royal Navy ships, 19 French Navy ships, 5 U.S. Navy ships, 4 Spanish, 4 Argentine, 2 Swedish, all named HMS Hercules or Herculer.
Wow, 19 French ships. He was popular.
Very.
Though, interestingly, the phrase defenders of the crown has even taken on a somewhat pejorative connotation in modern Greek, ironically meaning chief henchman, just showing how deep and multifaceted his influence goes, even into slang and political commentary.
That's fascinating how meanings can shift over time.
We've explored Hercules' enduring legacy, his fascinating journey through various cultures, and his pervasive presence in society and art. But now, it's time for the true deep dive, the moment where we truly uncover his hidden depths, his remarkable cunning, and the intelligence that often gets overshadowed by his legendary brawn. We're talking about his 11th labor, the quest for the golden apples of the Hesperides.
Ah, yes, the golden apples. This labor, as meticulously outlined by King Eurystheus, was arguably the most cunning and insidious trap devised for Hercules out of all his 12 labors.
Insidious.
Eurystheus, now thoroughly exasperated and terrified by Hercules' seemingly unstoppable power, knew that this quest wasn't just about raw strength. It was designed to lead to Hercules' utter failure, incur the direct wrath of Hera, his lifelong tormentor and Eurystheus' patron, or simply lead to his definitive demise, freeing the king from his obligations.
So Eurystheus was really hoping this was the end for Hercules.
Absolutely. It was a direct challenge, not merely to Hercules' physical prowess, but to the gods themselves who protected this most sacred of treasures.
The stage for this labor is the Garden of the Hesperides. Just hearing the name conjures images of pure myth, ethereal beauty, and profound mystery. Where exactly was this legendary place, and what made it so extraordinarily special?
This mythical garden was consistently located in the far, far west, often described as beyond the edges of the known world, near the Atlas Mountains, or even in the Blessed Lands where the sun sets.
Way out west. You serious?
It was a place perpetually shrouded in a mystical mist and bathed in an eternal twilight, imbued with an undeniable, profound divine magic. It wasn't just a garden of beautiful trees, it was a sacred sanctuary, a piece of divine paradise on earth, kept hidden from mortal eyes and grasp.
And its divine origin truly elevates its significance beyond measure, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The Garden of the Hesperides was no ordinary orchard. It was a cherished wedding gift from Gaia, Mother Earth herself, to Hera upon her sacred marriage to Zeus.
A wedding gift from Earth to the Queen of Heaven. Wow.
This makes its purity, its sacredness, and its connection to the very fabric of divine creation unparalleled. It stood as a testament to primordial love and creation, a pristine Eden not meant for mortal consumption.
And at the very heart of this sacred sanctuary lay the legendary golden apples. These weren't just pretty fruits, were they? What made them so extraordinarily valuable?
Far from it. These golden apples were truly extraordinary, glimmering with an inner light as if spun from pure sunlight. They were believed to bestow incredible, almost unimaginable powers upon those who consumed them. Immortality, eternal youth, divine wisdom, or even direct divine power.
Immortality itself. Okay, the stakes are high.
Imagine the stakes involved. This wasn't just about collecting a prize, it was about laying hands on divinity itself, a direct challenge to the order of the cosmos. No wonder Eurystheus thought this task was impossible.
And protecting this ultimate treasure were guardians of immense power. First, the Hesperides themselves.
The Hesperides were the nymphs of the evening, often described as the beautiful daughters of Atlas, or Nyx, the primordial goddess of night. They were entrusted directly by Hera with the tree's meticulous care, ensuring its purity and protecting it from any intruders. They were vigilant.
But not the main defense.
But they weren't the only ones, or even the primary line of defense. Coiled around the tree, a truly terrifying sight, was a monstrous, 100-headed serpent named Ladon.
100 heads. That's an intense level of vigilance and a truly formidable foe.
And utterly terrifying to behold. Ladon was a child of the monstrous Typhon and Echidna, making him a truly formidable and horrifying creature, and a brother to other famous monsters Hercules had already faced, like the multi-headed Lernaean Hydra and the 3-headed hound of the underworld, Cerberus.
So, related to the Hydra and Cerberus, bad family tree.
Definitely not one you want at your family reunion. Its eyes were said to be never sleeping, meaning it possessed an unblinking, eternal vigilance. It was designed by the gods to be an unbreachable barrier, a truly formidable protector, ensuring no one could ever steal the divine fruit. So Hercules faced an almost impossible task from the outset, not just physically, but due to the sheer divine protection of the garden.
Okay, so the quest is set. Hercules is tasked with the seemingly impossible. This isn't just a physical challenge. It's a legendary odyssey just to find the place, let alone obtain the apples. Let's trace Hercules' incredible journey to the very edge of the world.
Indeed. His journey to the Garden of the Hesperides was itself a tale of epic proportions, an odyssey that spanned vast uncharted lands and confronted him with numerous obstacles and strange, often hostile peoples before he even got close to his objective.
So just getting there was a labor in itself.
Pretty much. He had to overcome both geographical and mythical barriers. This part of the labor highlights his relentless perseverance and resilience, not just his brute strength. He navigated deserts, mountains, and treacherous seas, demonstrating his indomitable will.
And he quickly realized he needed more than just strength. He needed guidance to find such a hidden place. Who did he turn to for crucial information?
According to some myths, his first stop was to capture the ancient sea god Nereus, known as the Old Man of the Sea.
The Old Man of the Sea, the shapeshifter.
That's him. Nereus was a mercurial shapeshifter who possessed knowledge of all things, past, present, and future. Hercules had to wrestle with him, holding him fast through all his myriad transformations into fire, water, a lion, a serpent, until Nereus, exhausted and unable to escape, finally revealed the garden's elusive location.
He had to literally wrestle the information out of him.
You could say that. But crucially, he also sought out the wise titan Prometheus.
Prometheus, the legendary titan famously chained to a rock for giving humanity the gift of fire against Zeus's will. This is a brilliant connection, tying this labor into a larger cosmic narrative.
It truly is. Hercules, during his long journey, found Prometheus suffering his eternal torment, an eagle perpetually devouring his liver. In exchange for his eventual liberation, a heroic act that Hercules would achieve in a later adventure, striking down the eagle and freeing the titan, thus fulfilling a prophecy and repaying a debt.
So a quid pro quo.
Exactly. Prometheus offered crucial advice. He advised Hercules not to pluck the apples himself, as they were sacred to Hera and guarded by Ladon, but instead to seek the aid of Atlas, the mighty titan who bore the weight of the heavens on his shoulders.
Don't touch the apples yourself. Get Atlas to do it. That immediately tells you this isn't going to be a straightforward fight. It's going to be a battle of wits.
Precisely. It sets up the whole trickery element.
So Hercules, having endured this long journey and received prophetic advice, finally finds Atlas. Describe this monumental encounter.
Hercules finally reached the distant land where Atlas stood, a truly colossal, ancient figure enduring an eternal, agonizing torment. He was literally holding the weight of the heavens on his shoulders, a punishment from Zeus after the Titanomachy, the war between the Titans and the Olympian gods.
Holding up the sky. Forever.
It was an unimaginable burden that had bent his back and weighed heavily on his mind for eons. The Garden of the Hesperides was conveniently located nearby, at the very edge of the world, and the Hesperides, those nymphs, were actually Atlas's daughters.
Atlas's daughters guarded the apples. Okay, that's key.
This unique family connection was absolutely key. It meant Atlas, as their father, was uniquely able to approach and retrieve the apples from the garden without being harmed by his daughter's pet and guardian, Ladon.
And this leads to a cosmic bargain. One of the most audacious proposals in all of Greek mythology.
Hercules, ever daring and always looking for a direct solution, approached Atlas with a truly extraordinary proposition. He offered to hold the weight of the heavens himself for a short time, just long enough for Atlas to retrieve the golden apples from his daughter's garden.
He offered to take the sky.
Seriously?
Seriously. Atlas, desperate for even a moment's respite from his eternal, crushing burden, and perhaps initially thinking this was too good to be true, readily agreed. He knew Ladon wouldn't harm him, given his paternal connection to the Hesperides.
So Hercules, the mightiest demigod, actually takes on the weight of the sky. The sheer scale of that act is mind-boggling, isn't it? It's the ultimate display of strength. It truly is an immense effort, requiring not just physical strength, but an almost incomprehensible understanding of cosmic balance. The physical strain would have been unimaginable, a burden that would have instantly crushed any other mortal, or even most gods.
I can't even imagine.
Hercules, for a brief, agonizing period, bore the entire universe on his back, his muscles straining, his will tested to its absolute limit, literally becoming a temporary Atlas. This moment solidifies his place as the strongest, capable of bearing the impossible. But it also subtly sets the stage for the true test, not of his muscles, but of his mind.
And that true test reveals itself immediately when Atlas, having tasted the sweet, liberating relief of freedom, decides he doesn't want the sky back. This is the moment of cunning betrayal.
Exactly. Atlas quickly retrieved the 3 glistening golden apples from his daughter's garden, bypassing Ladon with ease, as expected. But once he felt that blissful relief of being free from the sky's crushing weight for the first time in millennia, Atlas, described by many as a cunning titan himself, decided he had no intention of taking the burden back.
He just walks off.
Pretty much. He turned to Hercules, a sly look in his ancient eyes, and casually suggested that he, Atlas, would take the apples to King Eurystheus himself, leaving Hercules forever holding the heavens. It was a clever, if incredibly cruel, trick by the Titan, intending to exploit Hercules' immense strength, leave him permanently enslaved.
Ouch. That's cold. Holding the sky forever.
But Hercules, even burdened by the entire cosmos, was also renowned for his considerable cunning, a trait often overlooked in favor of his brawn. This is where the brains over brawn theme truly, dramatically comes into play. What was his counterploy? How did he outwit the cunning Titan?
Yeah, how does he get out of this one?
Despite being under the immense, crushing cosmic burden, Hercules' mind remained remarkably sharp. He immediately recognized Atlas's treachery and knew he couldn't physically force the Titan back under the sky, not while he was carrying the world. So, with supreme composure, he played along.
Pretended to agree.
Pretended to agree to Atlas's new, treacherous terms. But then, he feigned discomfort and asked for one small favor. He requested Atlas to take the sky back for just a moment, just long enough for Hercules to adjust his lion hide padding, which he claimed was digging into his shoulders and needed to be repositioned to ease the immense weight he'd been enduring.
Hey, Alice, could you just hold this for a sec while I adjust my cushion? Brilliant.
Exactly. And Atlas, thinking he had completely outsmarted the brute hero, fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. The Titan of intellect, outwitted by the hero of strength.
He actually fell for it.
He did indeed. Atlas, completely confident in his own superior intellect and eager to see Hercules' discomfort, perhaps even relishing the thought of Hercules' continued struggle, before his eventual permanent burden, foolishly agreed to this seemingly minor, innocent request. He once again took the immense weight of the sky back onto his own mighty shoulders, shifting it from Hercules. And in that split second, that minuscule window of opportunity, freed from the cosmic burden, Hercules swiftly grabbed the golden apples, gave a quick sardonic thanks to the now trapped Atlas, and departed, leaving the Titan once again bound to his eternal torment.
Yes, he did it. That's fantastic.
This is the ultimate aha moment of the labor, a truly unexpected triumph of intellect over overwhelming power.
It's a moment of strategic genius, isn't it? Atlas, the ancient intellectual Titan, outwitted by the supposedly simple brawny hero, the very power he tried to exploit became his downfall.
Precisely. Hercules returned to King Eurystheus with the golden apples, completing his 11th labor. Eurystheus, as always, was utterly terrified and perhaps even awed by the sheer impossibility of the feat.
What did Eurystheus even do with immortal apples?
Well, he accepted them, but having no idea what to do with them, as they were too sacred and dangerous for a mortal king, eventually returned them to Athena, the goddess of wisdom. Athena then, in turn, returned them to the garden of the Hesperides, ensuring their sacred purity was maintained and the cosmic order restored.
So the apples went back where they belonged. A nice, neat ending.
A restoration of balance. This labor is absolutely pivotal for understanding the true depth of Hercules, isn't it? It's clearly not just about strength.
Not at all. This labor is fundamentally about intellect, cunning, and the profound ability to outwit even a primordial Titan. Hercules, known overwhelmingly for his physical prowess and brute force, here proves himself a master strategist, using his wits to overcome a challenge where pure physical power was completely useless.
Right, he couldn't just punch his way out of holding the sky.
Exactly. He couldn't fight Ladon head-on without risking the apples, and he certainly couldn't wrestle the sky from Atlas. It teaches a profound lesson that echoes through the ages. Even the mightiest can be outsmarted, and intelligence is a weapon as potent, if not more potent, than any club or sword. It truly makes it a story of cosmic wits, where the hero's mind shines brighter than his muscles.
The myth of the golden apples of the Hesperides is a timeless narrative, then. It's about ultimate treasure, formidable guardians, and that complex, captivating interplay of overwhelming power and subtle wit. It's a gripping story that celebrates ingenuity, perseverance, and the hero who dared to outsmart even the very titans to achieve his destiny, claiming a prize that symbolized immortality itself.
And there you have it. A deep dive into Hercules, a figure far more complex and captivating than the simple strongman image often portrayed. We've seen how his story encompasses immense physical power, yes, but also profound personal struggles, deep cultural integration across millennia, and perhaps most surprisingly, a sharp, cunning intellect, as so vividly demonstrated by his triumph over Atlas, the very bearer of the cosmos.
It's a story that powerfully reminds us that true heroism often lies not just in the muscles we flex, but in the mind that guides them. The quest for the golden apple stands as one of Hercules' most remarkable and intellectually challenging labors, a testament to his cunning, his perseverance, and his audacious ability to trick even the mighty Atlas.
Yeah, that trick was something else.
It's a powerful narrative that proves true heroism lies not just in overwhelming physical power, but in the wisdom and ingenuity to outwit your foes, even the cosmic ones.
We've explored Hercules, the warrior, the god, and even the trickster. So a question for you listening. What other heroes, from myth or history, do you think embody a similar, surprising blend of immense strength and cunning intellect? Odysseus comes to mind, maybe.
Odysseus is a great example, definitely more known for his cunning, though.
True. And maybe think about this. When in your own life have you found that brains over brawn was truly the path to victory? It's something we all encounter, I think.
The enduring appeal of Hercules reminds us that true heroism often lies not just in the muscles we flex, but in the mind that guides them. We encourage you to reflect on the deeper lessons within ancient myths, and perhaps even revisit other heroic tales with this new perspective in mind. You might be surprised what you find.